Hi everybody, I'm Alex, and welcome to Storytime. Today I have all kinds of great stories for you, and this time they're all about food. But before we get into it, I do want to do a couple of things. For starters, I want to introduce you to my buddy Buster, who's here, like usual, to keep me company. Also, I want to let you know that if you like Storytimes, we have so many great Storytimes in ADL TV, and you should take a look. Also, if you're looking for something to do, we have all kinds of great kids craft projects, and you should take a look at those as well. Also, if you like kids programming, we have The Saturday Show, which is always on a theme and always excellent. Okay, I think we've covered our bases, and I think it's time to do a hello song. Because you can't have a good story time without a good hello song, isn't that right? Right. Okay, a 1, 2, 3. There are so many different languages in the world, and so many different ways to say hello. For example, in Japan you would say konnichiwa. Let's try that one next. Konnichiwa, friends. Konnichiwa, friends. Konnichiwa, friends. I'd like to say konnichiwa. How else could we say hello today? You know, I hear in Swahili you would say habari. Let's try that one too. Habari, friends. Habari, friends. Habari, friends. I'd like to say habari. How else could we say hello today? You know, in Germany, they say Guten Tag. Let's try that one next. Guten Tag, friends. Guten Tag, friends. Guten Tag, friends. I'd like to say Guten Tag. All right, back to hello. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. I'd like to say hello. All right. Now, it's time to do a finger exercise and a rhyme. I brought my fingers with me today. How about you? Oh, you did. That's good. All right, we're going to do 2 little blackbirds, and like usual, I'm going to use my index fingers. My first finger's like this. And a 1, 2, 3. 2 little blackbirds sitting on a tree. One named Stan, and the other named Lee. Fly away, Stan. Fly away, Lee. Come back, Stan. Come back, Lee. All right, let's do a different version this time. 2 little blackbirds sitting on the ice. One was mean, and the other was nice. Fly away, mean. Fly away, nice. Come back, mean. Come back, nice. All right, one last version. 2 little blackbirds sitting on a car. One was near, and the other was far. Fly away near, fly away far. Come back near, come back far. Okay, now it's time for a story. Lenny the lobster was invited to a fancy dinner party. He was delighted. He put on his best hat, combed his mustache, and shined his claws. He looked dashing. He had bought flowers for the hosts, a yummy chocolate cake for dessert, and bubblegum for the kids. Every lobster knows it's nice to bring gifts to a party. When Lenny got to the dinner party, everyone was very excited to see him. In fact, they seemed a little too excited. They welcomed Lenny with a gift of their own, 2 tiny rubber band bracelets for his claws. "Why, thank you," said Lenny. "They match my hat beautifully." Then everyone put on a bib with a picture of Lenny on the front. "I had no idea I was the guest of honor," Lenny said. But wait, what does it say here? It says, "Hold on. Are you getting a funny feeling about this party? Do you think Lenny should stay for dinner? If you do, turn the page. But if you think he should scoot out of there as fast as he can, turn to page 22. Choose quickly. The guests look hungry." What will we do? I think we should go ahead and turn the next page. Lenny's hosts told him it was a family tradition for guests to take a dip in the hot tub before dinner. A hot tub sounds very relaxing, he thought. So Lenny put on his swim trunks, looked down into the pot, and jumped. But little Imogen swept in and snatched him out of the air. Before anyone could stop her, she whisked Lenny away. "Young lady, what do you think you're doing? This is very rude," he said. "You're ruining the party." Imogen wouldn't listen. She pedaled all the way to the beach, and do you know what she did when she got there? "You're free, Mr. Lobster. I've saved your life," she cried. "Good heavens, saved my life? You've only bent my mustache," he shouted. Lenny was beside himself. He knew that if he didn't get back to the party, he might miss dinner. When he finally made it back, Lenny made sure that Imogen would not ruin his evening again. He locked her out of the house. "Now let's get this party started. Woohoo!" Oh no! Lenny made the wrong decision by staying at the party. We can't let our story end this way. Go back to the beginning, and when it's time to choose, make sure that Lenny does not stay for dinner. Oh no! Poor Lenny. I think we should go back to the beginning and start over, and I think this time we should try to save our friend. What do you think? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, you guys. Lenny the Lobster was invited to a fancy dinner party. He was delighted. He put on his best hat, combed his mustache, shined his claws. He looked dashing. He had bought flowers, yummy cake, bubblegum. Every lobster knows it's nice to bring gifts to a party. When Lenny got to the dinner party, everyone was very excited to see him. In fact, they seemed a little too excited. They welcomed Lenny with a gift of their own, rubber band bracelets. "Why, thank you. They match my cat beautifully." Then everyone put on a bib with a picture of Lenny on the front. "I had no idea I was the guest of honor," Lenny said. "Okay, hold on. Do you get a funny feeling about this dinner party?" By this point, you should. Do you think Lenny should stay for dinner? You should not. If you do, turn the page, which we don't. But if you think he could scoot out of there as quickly as he can, turn to page 22, which is exactly what we're going to do. Then Lenny saw the butter. He saw a pot of boiling water. He heard growling bellies. Lenny had to get out of there. He could not stay for dinner, but his hosts were not ready to end the party. He had been down this road before, and this time he had come prepared. "You're messing with the wrong lobster. Cake to the face. Flower power. Bubblegum cavity attack." As Lenny fought his way through the dinner party, a few things happened that are hard to explain. But despite all his clever tricks, there were just too many people to overcome. Lenny was trapped. That is, until little Imogen came to his rescue. What is that she had in her hand? A Chinese food menu. Well, it was just a little awkward at first, but a good dumpling can fix just about anything. I can't believe you were going to cook me, chuckled Lenny. That's hilarious. Everyone had a good laugh until... Hey, they forgot to send the lobster chow mein. Uh-oh. Good old Imogen. The end. Alright, you kids, now it's time for a song, and we're gonna do the pirate song, because I think it's the best. Alright, a 1, 2, 3. When I was 1, I sucked my thumb on the day I went to sea. I climbed aboard a pirate ship, and the captain said to me, oh, you'll go this way, that way, forwards, backwards, over the deep blue sea. When I was 2, I tied my shoe on the day I went to sea. I climbed aboard a pirate ship, and the captain said to me, oh, you'll go this way, that way, forwards, backwards, over the deep blue sea. When I was 3, I tapped my knee on the day I went to sea. I climbed aboard a pirate ship, and the captain said to me, oh, you'll go this way, that way, forwards, backwards, over the deep blue sea. When I was 4, I shut the door on the day I went to sea. I climbed aboard a pirate ship, and the captain said to me, oh, you'll go this way, that way, forwards, backwards, over the deep blue sea. When I was 5, I danced and jived on the day I went to sea. I climbed aboard a pirate ship, and the captain said to me, oh, you'll go this way, that way, forwards, backwards, over the deep blue sea. Next, we have the wolf's chicken stew. Now, once upon a time, there was a very hungry wolf who loved food more than anything. In fact, he loved food so much that as soon as he had finished eating something, he would immediately start thinking about his next meal. Well, one day, the wolf woke up at dawn, rolled out of his wolf bed, and walked out of his den, and set about thinking about what he was going to eat. He decided that he wanted, more than anything else in the world, a nice hearty chicken stew. He looked around and he realized he had almost everything he would need. He had wood for his fire. He had an enormous pot to cook things in. He had all kinds of vegetables to add and water to boot. The only thing he lacked was a chicken. So, he set out looking for a chicken. He walked into the woods, looked everywhere, and there were no chickens. He tried the farmer's field next. He looked everywhere, and there were still no chickens. He decided that he was going to check the barnyard next. And sure enough, next to the chicken coop, there was a nice plump hen. That hen looked so delicious that the wolf's mouth started to water right away. Well, he started sneaking up on that chicken. He crept up closer, and closer, and closer, and all the while the chicken just walked around pecking at the ground, as chickens do. Well, as he got so close that he was almost ready to pounce, he realized that actually, that chicken was plump. It would make a very decent chicken stew. But if he fed that chicken, he could make that chicken even plumper and make for an even better stew, which is what he did. So he very carefully snuck backwards so that the chicken would not see him, and he quick headed home and started cooking. He cooked, and he cooked, and he cooked all day and all through the night, and when he was done, the very next morning at dawn, he had an enormous, gigantic stack of 100 pancakes in front of him. He put them on a nice plate, he put maple syrup and butter on top, and he carried that plate through the woods, through the farmer's field, to the chicken coop. He put them down right in front of the chicken coop's door, and he knocked, knock, 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 and quick ran away before anyone saw him. Well, the chicken walked out her front door, she looked down, and she saw that enormous, delicious-looking pile of pancakes. And she turned and she looked at her little chicks, and she said, "My babies, look at what we have found. Somebody has made us 100 pancakes to eat. That is the nicest thing I could think of." So she pulled that plate in, and she and her chicks had a truly fantastic meal. Well, later that day, the wolf tried to go and check in on his work. He crept through the forest, he crept through the farmer's field, he crept up to the chicken coop, and sure enough, the hen was just a little bit plumper than she had been before. So he crept very carefully, a little closer, and then a little closer still, and a little closer still, and right before he was ready to pounce, he had another thought. He thought to himself, this chicken is getting pretty plump. She would make a pretty darn good chicken stew. But I bet if I feed her some more, she will be even plumper still and will make the world's most fantastic chicken stew. So that's what he did. He very carefully crept back and left before anyone saw him. And he cooked, and he cooked, and he cooked, and he cooked. And he cooked through the night, and by dawn, he had a plate full of absolutely beautiful donuts. In fact, he had a plate of 100 absolutely beautiful donuts. And he took that plate, and he went through the woods, through the field, up to the chicken coop, and put them down in front of the chicken coop door, and knocked, knock, 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 and ran away. Well, when the chicken walked out, she saw those donuts, and she turned to her chicks and she said, "My babies, look at what somebody has left for us. They have left 100 absolutely beautiful donuts." So she took them in, and she and her chicks had a truly wonderful meal. Well, later that day, the wolf crept through the forest. He crept through the field. He crept up to the chicken coop, and he saw that that hen was even bigger than the day before. And he said to himself, look at her. She looks fantastic. She looks like she would make an excellent chicken stew. So he crept a little bit closer, and a little bit closer, and a little bit closer still. And right before he was ready to pounce, he had another thought. He thought to himself, this hen looks like she would make a truly fantastic chicken stew. But I bet if I feed her again, she will make a truly fantastic record-breaking chicken stew. So he crept back and quick made it out of there before anyone saw him. And he cooked all day and all through the night, and by dawn, he had a magnificent 100-layer birthday cake in front of him. And he put frosting and sprinkles on top and 2 cherries to boot. Well, he took that cake, put it on a plate, and took it over to the chicken coop and set it down in front of the door and knocked, knock, 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 and quick ran away before anybody saw him. Well, when the chicken walked out of her door and looked down, she saw that enormous cake, and she turned to her chicks and she said, "My babies, somebody is so kind. This time they have brought us a 100-layer birthday cake, and it's not even anybody's birthday." And couldn't that be a nice surprise? So she brought that cake inside, and she and her chicks had a truly wonderful meal. Well, later that day, the wolf decided to check in on his work. He walked through the forest, he walked through the farmer's field, and he started to creep up to the chicken coop. But this time, there was nobody outside. So he crept up very carefully, right up to the chicken coop door, and he decided, well, this hen, if she's ever going to be ready, it's now. So I am not going to wait for her to come outside. I am going to knock on the door. And when she walks out, I'm going to pounce, and I'm going to turn her into a stew. So he knocked, knock, knock, knock. And then he crept to the side, and he reached over, and he was ready to pounce. And when that hen walked out, she said, "Oh, it's you, Mr. Wolf. Have you been making us all of this wonderful food?" And the wolf said, "Yes, I have," in this most ferocious wolf voice. And she looked up so sweetly, and she said, "Look, my babies, my chicks, look at Mr. Wolf. He has made us so many wonderful things to eat." And the wolf looked, and he saw those chicks, and they were so cute. And he looked at the chicken, and she was so sweet. And the chicken looked up at him and said, "You have been doing us such a kindness that I went ahead and I started making something myself. I worked all yesterday and all through the night, and by dawn I had a plate of 100 absolutely delicious looking cookies, and I would like you to share them with us." And that was so kind, and those chicks were so cute, and that hen was so sweet that the wolf knew he could never eat them. So the wolf said, "Thank you." And the wolf came into that little chicken coop, and he and the hen's little chicks all ate a truly fantastic meal. And they were all together happy ever after. The end. There was once a very hungry king who needed a cook like anything. So he tried out lots and lots of cooks with their pots and their pans and their how-to-cook books. One by one, they cooked for the king. They cooked and they cooked like anything. But nothing they cooked was good enough. This egg is runny. This meat is tough. Too hot, too cold, too sour, too smelly. I don't want a sausage inside my jelly. This tastes all wrong, said the hungry king. And he frowned like anything. But then he spotted another cook, with feet that shuffled and hands that shook. My name, said the cook, is Wobbly Bob. I'm a bit of a wimp, but I'd love the job. The king thought, then he scratched his head. I fancy some fish and chips, he said. Yes, fish and chips is my favorite dish, but first you'll need to catch the fish. Help, said the cook, I'm feeling scared. I'd love to fish if only I dared. But a shark might land in the fishing net, or I might get my nice new apron wet. My knees are knocking, the cook declared. I'm scared, I'm terribly scared. I'll help you fish, said the hungry king. So he fished and he fished like anything. He caught some fish that were nice and big. Then he said to the cook, it's time to dig. Help, said the cook, I'm feeling scared. I'd love to dig if only I dared. But I'm scared of worms and I'm scared of ants. They might crawl up into my nice new pants. My palms are sweating, the cook declared. I'm scared, I'm terribly scared. I'll help you dig, said the hungry king. So he dug and he dug like anything. Then he said to the cook as he licked his lips, chop these potatoes into chips. Help, said the cook, I'm feeling scared. I'd love to chop if only I dared. But knives are sharp and I might get hurt. I might get blood on my nice new shirt. My heart is thumping, the cook declared. I'm scared, I'm terribly scared. I'll help you chop, said the hungry king. So he chopped and he chopped like anything. Then he said to the cook, who was standing by, out with the pan, it's time to fry. Help, said the cook, I'm feeling scared. I'd love to fry if only I dared. But oil can splutter and spit and splat. I might get a drop on my nice new hat. My teeth are rattling, the cook declared. I'm scared, I'm terribly scared. I'll help you fry, said the hungry king. So he fried and he fried like anything. Then he set the table and took a seat. And he said to the cook, it's time to eat. Good, said the cook, so the two men shared. What great cooking, the king declared. What well-chopped chips, and what well-fried fish. All in all, a delicious dish. It tastes just right, said the full-up king. And he smiled like anything. Congratulations, Wobbly Bob. You may be a wimp, but you got the job. The end. All right, you kids, it's time for another song. And this time we're going to do the Grand Old Duke of York, because it's the best. All right, a 1, 2, 3. Oh, the Grand Old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. He marched them up to the top of the hill, he marched them down again. And when you're up, you're up, and when you're down, you're down. And when you're only halfway up, you're neither up nor down. Now, the best part of this song is that you can sing it over and over again. And each time you sing it, you can go just a little bit faster. Let's give it a try. Oh, the Grand Old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. He marched them up the top of the hill, he marched them down again. And when you're up, you're up, and when you're down, you're down. And when you're only halfway up, you're neither up nor down. That was pretty fast, but I think we can go even faster still. What do you think? Yeah, let's try. Oh, the Grand Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. You march him up the top of the hill, you march him down again. And when you're up, you're up. And when you're down, you're down. And when you're only halfway up, you're neither up nor down. So that was really fast, but I bet we can go even super blindingly lightning more fast. Let's give it a try. Oh, the Grand Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. You march him up the top of the hill, you march him down again. And when you're up, you're up. And when you're down, you're down. And when you're only halfway up, you're neither up nor down. Oh man, you guys, that was so fast. I was getting a little bit tongue-tied. But in any event, it's now time for another story. Next up, we have the enormous turnip. Now, once upon a time, there was an old man and an old woman who both owned a farm on the edge of a tiny village. Now, the most important thing to know is that they were very poor, but they worked very hard and they were able to feed themselves and their granddaughter and their dog and their cat and their friend the mouse who lived beneath the cupboard. Now, every year, the old man would plant turnip seeds in the spring in the garden next to their house. And all year long, he would water the turnips, and he would weed the garden to make sure the turnips would grow. And all spring and summer and fall, they would catch fish in the river, they would go into the woods to look for nuts and other good things to eat, and they would make do with what they had. But the winters were hard. In the winter, all they had to rely on were the turnips that grew in that tiny little patch of ground next to their house. Well, one year started like any other. The old man, he walked out to the garden, and he planted his turnip seeds, and he watered, and he pulled out the weeds like he always did. But this year, instead of 100 turnips, or 1,000 turnips, or 2,000 turnips, only 5 grew in their garden. This made the farmer very worried, but he did as he always did. He fished, he went into the woods and gathered nuts and other good things to eat, and they did all right through the spring, summer, and fall. Well, when it finally came time to harvest the turnips for winter, he was very worried, but he did as he always did. So he walked out, he came up to the first turnip he saw, he leaned over, he grabbed it by the stalk right at the ground, and he tried to pull it out. Well, he gave it one big pull, and the thing would not budge. He tried again. He pulled, but still the turnip would not budge. He tried a third time. He, 1, 2, 3, pulled, but still the turnip wouldn't budge. In fact, he pulled so hard that his feet slipped out from under him, and he landed on his bottom next to the turnip. Well, once he recovered from his embarrassment, he decided he needed a little help. So he called out to his wife. He said, "Wife, please come help me pull up this turnip." Well, the wife looked out their front door, looked at him sitting on the ground, and said, "You silly old man, you can't even pull one turnip out of the ground? Ugh." But anyway, she pushed up her shirt sleeves, and she walked over, and she grabbed a hold of her husband, who in turn grabbed a hold of the turnip, and they pulled. But you know what happened? It didn't budge. They tried again. They pulled, and still it wouldn't budge. They tried a third time, and they pulled, and this time both of their feet slipped out from under them, and they landed on their bums on the ground. Well, this clearly called for more help. So they called out to their granddaughter. They said, "Granddaughter, please help us pull this stubborn turnip out of the ground." And she thought this was quite silly, but their granddaughter, she was a good sport. So the granddaughter, she grabbed a hold of the grandmother's waist. And the old woman, she grabbed a hold of her husband. And her husband, he grabbed a hold of that turnip, and they pulled. And of course it wouldn't budge. So they pulled again. They pulled. And again, it still wouldn't budge. They pulled a third time. They said, 1, 2, 3, pull. And they pulled with all their might. And sure enough, all their feet slipped out from under them, and they all landed on their backsides. Well, what else could they do? They called out to the next biggest person living on their farm, which was their dog. They said, "Dog, please come help us pull this turnip out of the ground." And dog, being like any dog, didn't really see much point in turnips, but he's a good sport. So he came out, and he used his teeth to grab a hold of the granddaughter's skirt. And the granddaughter, she grabbed a hold of her grandmother. And the old woman grabbed a hold of her husband. And the old man grabbed a hold of that turnip, and they pulled, and still it wouldn't budge. And they pulled again, and it still wouldn't budge. And they pulled again, and sure enough, all 4 of them landed on their backsides, and still the turnip was firmly planted in the ground. Well, they did the only other thing they could think of to do. They called for Cat. They said, Cat, please come out and help us pull this turnip out of the ground. Which, of course, a cat thinks that a turnip is even more useless than a dog would think. But the cat was a good sport. So the cat grabbed a hold of the dog's tail, and the dog grabbed a hold of the granddaughter, and the granddaughter grabbed a hold of the old woman, and the old woman grabbed a hold of her husband, and her husband grabbed a hold of that turnip, and they pulled. And still it wouldn't budge. And they pulled again, and still it wouldn't budge. And they, 1, 2, 3, pulled so hard, all of them. And sure enough, all of their feet slipped out from under them, and all of them landed on their backsides. Well, they were feeling desperate. There was almost nothing left to be done. But they did the only thing that was left to do. They asked their friend the mouse. They said, Mouse, please come help us pull this stubborn turnip out of the ground. And the mouse thought, well, I'm so tiny and there's not much I can do, but I'll give it a go. So, the mouse and the cat grabbed a hold of the dog grabbed a hold of the granddaughter grabbed a hold of the old woman grabbed a hold of her husband, and the old man grabbed a hold of that turnip, and they pulled, and nothing happened. And they pulled again, and nothing happened. And then they, 1, 2, 3, pulled with all of their might, and slowly at first, and then suddenly, the turnip plopped up out of the ground. And all of them landed on their backsides. And much to their surprise, when they looked up, they saw the world's most enormous turnip sitting next to them. It was so big, it was bigger than the grandfather's head. It was so big, it was bigger than the grandmother's whole body. It was so big that it was bigger than all 6 of them put together. And all of a sudden, all of their worries about what they were going to do for winter just went away. They had enough turnip to make turnip pie. They had enough turnip to make turnip stew. They had enough turnip to make turnip birthday cake and turnip cookies and turnip anything you could ever possibly want to make. They had so much turnip that they were going to be able to get through the winter and then some. And they celebrated. They were so happy. They were so happy that they were finally able to pull that turnip out of the ground, and they did it together. And they lived happily ever after. The end. All right, you kids, it's almost that time. It's almost time to say goodbye. But we have time for one last song. And like usual, we're going to sing Knees Up Mother Brown. And also, like usual, I have the prestigious, the prodigious, the sometimes litigious Ma Brown to help us sing. Or at very least, she can dance while we sing. Isn't that right, Ma Brown? Yeah, that's right. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, there was a girl from Paris, France, who didn't know how to dance. The only thing that she could do was knees up Mother Brown. Oh, knees up Mother Brown. Knees up Mother Brown. Knees up, never let the breeze up. Knees up Mother Brown. Oh, we had some stories about food today, and it set the mood. Hooray! The only thing that we could do was knees up Mother Brown. Oh, knees up Mother Brown. Knees up Mother Brown. Knees up, never let the breeze up. Knees up Mother Brown. Oh, there was a teeny tiny man who liked to do handstands. You ready, Ma Brown? Okay, let's give it a go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, well, we made it to 5. The only thing that we could do was knees up Mother Brown. Oh, knees up Mother Brown. Knees up Mother Brown. Knees up, never let the breeze up. Knees up Mother Brown. Okay, one last time. Oh, there was a girl from Paris, France, who didn't know how to dance. The only thing that she could do was knees up Mother Brown. Oh, knees up Mother Brown. Knees up Mother Brown. Knees up, never let the breeze up. Knees up Mother Brown. All right, we'll see you next time.